So given the responses, at least that you're seeing today, how challenging do you think the cultural shift is going to continue to be, getting people out of cars and trucks and moving more towards public transportation?
It's not at all surprising that there's resistance, that there's a sense of disbelief that you're going to get people out of their cars into mass transit systems. We asked people, actually, a question we've asked over the years that said, even if public transit were much more efficient than it is today, I would still drive my car to work. And even today, 54% agree, yes, I would still drive my car to work, even if mass transit was much more efficient than it is today. But 41% disagreed. And that's a powerful constituency for using the alternatives to the automobile when they become available and if they work well.
Do you think those are true responses, with the idea that if Metro builds it, will they come, or are those folks just too entrenched in their cars to give them up?
We know that another 1 million people will move into Harris County, Texas in the next 20 years. 1 million. Where are they going to live? Who can doubt that if there's not some effort to reconfigure how we live in this county, all the remaining green spaces are going to be turned into subdivisions and parking lots. Traffic is going to get worse.
Quality of life, so many roads.
Quality of life will deteriorate in the city, and our ability to compete for the knowledge economy in the 21st century will deteriorate along with it. You don't want a whole lot more people living in high-rise buildings where everyone has to drive. But if you could encourage that high-rise to be built within a quarter mile of transit stops, where people can walk to a transit, and as the transit system improves and we make these connections to the urban centers in this multi-centered metropolitan region of ours, you have a real opportunity to create good density, to create pedestrian-friendly, transit-oriented development that will encourage people to move into those areas. And in our surveys, we asked people, if another 1 million people move here, is this going to be good or bad? And they all said, 50% said it's going to hurt the economy, it's going to deteriorate the quality of life. Only 20% thought things would be better. And then we asked, well, if 1 million people do come here, what would be the best way to accommodate that growth? And overwhelmingly, people said, encourage that growth in already developed areas, and only 17% said build more suburbs on the edge of existing suburbs. So there's a new awareness of a need to reinvent ourselves.
And given that projected growth, how do you envision mass transit in our city 10, 20 years from now?
There's a growing consensus of a vision for what Houston might look like. And this city is this multi-centered metropolitan region. There are 8 to 10 major activity centers of retail and residence and work opportunities that have larger populations than downtown San Diego. There are 8 of those. And they are the Sugarland and the Woodlands and Greenspoint Mall, and downtown is only one. You can begin to imagine a way by which you could have transit connecting these urban centers, and transit within those urban centers, where and then green spaces surrounding them.
It all sounds very good, but there is a lot of opposition or some opposition and some concern about those types of changes and development. Where do you think a lot of that is coming from?
Well, it's a tremendous revolutionary change in our whole concept of Houston. Houston, because it is so spread out, has been a place where people could go off into their gated communities in the suburbs. They could live in little enclaves made up of what the Wall Street Journal used to call PLUs, people like us. And you're comfortable there, and you feel like that's the right place to raise your children, and we're used to having our private automobile taking us into our private place to live that's protected and safe. And so I think that's some of the resistance to the idea of embracing this much wider public that a public transit system entails. And one of the central themes in our surveys over these years is, as we watch this extraordinary demographic revolution occur, people are becoming increasingly comfortable with the ethnic diversity, increasingly comfortable with the idea that not everyone I run into now is going to look like me, or come from the same backgrounds and have the same perspectives, or have the same proclivities as me. And that's okay. In fact, that enhances and makes a much more interesting life. And you see more and more of that developing. There will be resistance. No one expects, in fact, it is inconceivable that we'll build a world like Boston or New York where you don't need an automobile.
Right.
But it is conceivable that we can build a world where a family can get away with one car, or maybe two cars, but not 3 or 4, right? And that's really the long-term goal, I think.
Well, on that note, we'll take a quick break and stay with us. We'll be right back.